Welcome to another Pharaoh art stream with myself, Pharaoh. It's a late afternoon stream. Finished work early for the day, thanks to early morning meetings. So I'm here with you now to take you through the next year of Interwar art at the Royal Academy. That is 1935. First of all, thank you so much for those who've been tuning in. It's great to see those numbers rise up. The hardcore followers, the people who've made it all the way through every single year. I appreciate your persistence. I'm in the middle of trying to procure 2 more books, and that will take us up to 1940. So we'll have done 20 years. So for starting a little bit later, finishing a little bit later as well. Although I did think that that's kind of fitting because, artworks will take about a year or 2 years to really cultivate. So I think there's always a little bit of lag for the culture behind what's going on in real life. So what have we seen so far? I think the 30s has marked some really interesting art from the Academy. Some really cool stuff. And we're going to continue to see it crack on. I think maybe it's peaked at this stage. Like, you got to think about the 30s. I sort of alluded to this last time, the factionalization at the Royal Academy, where there is... Okay, maybe if I put it this way, I think there are basically 3 major factions, maybe even 4 factions in the Royal Academy and this kind of high-level artistic sphere during the interwar period. We've got the Symbolists, led by Ricketts, Charles Ricketts. He's dead at this point. I mean, I think I didn't mention that previously, but he's gone. The Symbolist group has effectively evaporated by 35. We've got who I'm calling the conservatives. This is your society portrait painters, your horse painters, your boring landscape painters. They've always been doing well. They haven't had much of a show, if I'm honest with you, during this series, because I've, on the whole, tended to ignore them. But we've seen them a few times, like Cope maybe, or that Chamberlain picture, stuff like that. I mean, Lavery sort of dabbles with that, but I think he's a little bit more interesting. You've got the so-called medieval modernists. I think certainly on the sculptural side, very strong force. That's your Reed Dick, Macmillan, etc. And then you've got your kind of Bloomsbury extreme modernists. But I mean, even those guys have had a bit of a showing. Specifically Stanley Spencer, I would say, is the most extreme modernist that is in the group. But there is about to be a change of personnel in the presidency soon. So 4 factions have already gone to 3, and there's going to be a real between these remaining factions, with the slop conservatives ascendant by the end of this period at the Royal Academy, which in my opinion marks the end of art in England, really, in some ways, because I mean, art is always in a process of renewal and recontextualizing to the time and age and spirit of the people. I think it cannot be the same, and because of that, you have to let that next generation in, but also train them and teach them. If you've ever seen Ibsen's Master Builder, there's a really good little passage about opening the door and letting the next generation of artists come through. And what we've got here is some really exciting art, really interesting groups that get blocked out from the Royal Academy, and we're going to see a degradation in the quality and the quantity of art. So we haven't peaked just yet, but I think we're pretty close to the limit. So keep an eye out for those different forces and those different styles. We're going to start off with landscape. I think landscape's interesting because I think a lot of it could fit within your slop conservatives, but I think the more interesting stuff at this period is like the landscape in town, the rocky landscape. This is we've seen a lot of example, and this is from H. Hughes Stanton, Mount Tagios and the Plains of Sparta. I mean, already, what a wonderfully evocative name. And we're rather than this kind of idealized, constable, picturesque landscape. And of course, I don't mean to makes me sound like I'm disregarding Constable. What Constable did was to extract the life out of the British countryside, rural life, country life, life of people, life of nature, and to display it in such a vivid, dynamic way. And he was really the first impressionist, I genuinely believe. If you see his handling of brushstrokes, etc., there's no wonder that Turner comes out of Constable. But there is in the landscape world, there is this stability, strength, the focused on the hard things. And I love this because we've got a rocky landscape. There was a really good little tweet I saw the other day which said, everyone thinks that the Greeks are island people. They're not island people, they're mountain people. And I thought, that is such a truth. People are obsessed with the kind of islands and the navigation, but actually for the majority of the Greeks, their life is like this. And this is what we see, the mountain on the right-hand side, the plains of Sparta, but also the ruins of man. And actually there is juxtaposition between the strength and power of nature and the strength and power of man, even man whose power has waned here. And we can see this, the great plains of Sparta and the palaces and the people that once commanded a continent now, or certainly a country, I should say, now reduced to nothing but a small pile of stones. But still they stand. Still they exist through time, like the mountain. Yes, they're kind of diminished in size, but still making their mark. And I think there's a very powerful and very evocative juxtaposition. Look at the lines across here. We've got a beautiful triangle, the faded background as well. Really interesting, and another one of these great rocky landscapes from the interwar period. Let's take a look at this one. This is the rebuilding of the Bank of England. Now, you may be forgiven if you've ever popped out of Bank Station and looked at Threadneedle Street to think that the Bank of England building is quite a lot older than it's essentially like a neoclassical building on steroids. It's a Baker building. We've seen him already with that Alfred Turner South African monument. Now, Soames did the original building, which I really, really love. A lot of people didn't like the fact that it got built. Big fan of the new Bank of England building because it just places sculpture and architecture together in one of the best ways in England. It's very rare to see the harmony between the sculptor and the architect. And Baker gets it. He just constantly gets it. That's like, I'm not really a classicist. I'm more actually Gothic, but I feel like Baker just gets and art and how it needs to work together and in harmony. So many interwar guys got that. I'm thinking Holden as well, whoever did the BBC building, etc. It's a great period for sculpture and building in harmony, something that's lost today. Like today, sculpture is an add-on which is slapped on. It's kind of like a sales feature. Oh, by the way, we got this. Oh, we put a Banksy on it. Just disgusting. It's like that's art as the most rank kind of skin deep ornamentism. Baker employed Wheeler, who did some of the sculptures that we'll hopefully see in one of these years, to carve light. Like, how amazing is that? It's not even done in a studio. It's something just so Renaissance, so medieval, so classical. Anyway, what we're seeing here is this little moment before the rebuild happens. And all of the old buildings have been taken down, and we're rebuilding up from the foundations. And I think, firstly, this kind of shows like just how deep the foundations of the Bank of England. Bear in mind there is a vault inside there, so you can see the kind of depth to it. Of the positioning, we're deep in foundations. We're yet to see what the building's like. Half of what we can see is this kind of building site, all these kind of strong girders and pylons all around. The dirt, a dried, pounded dirt pile leading up to the exit across here, bringing in materials, people at work. We're instantly given that sense of scale. Normally, I don't really like these kind of like hand-drawn, sketchy kind of things. But this is more than a landscape. This is about a testimony to the working men of England who were able to create these amazing, magnificent, like, how should I say? Just like moments of national outpouring. That's what you've got to consider with a great building like that. It is more than the from the very heart and soul of the nation, and so small. That's they almost look like ants or something like that. They're diminutive, faceless people, but used to create the Bank of England there. I really quite like this. Very nice piece. Okay, Philpott still going. Philpott has not got left for this long left for this world. He's still in his big kind of extreme modern phase, let's just say. Although again, Philpott, even though he has these kind of like extremes of vision, still sits within the classic mode, and that's what I think is quite interesting about him. Someone like Fry and the Bloomsbury guys, they say, look, just forget about the intellectual, forget about the spiritual life. This is about imagination. It's about the sensuous nature of art. And Philpott's like, okay, there's something definitely interesting here, but I'm going to add the thoughtfulness and add the soul at the same time. So I feel like, I genuinely feel like if Philpott survived for longer, he would have been forging his own path, but unfortunately never really managed to kind of teach. He's more like a De Chirico, I feel like. De Chirico is someone who is in that imagination landscape, but also is very much rooted in traditional stories and morality and spirituality as well. Bearing in mind, Philpott was a Catholic at the same time. So, that's, I think, an important part of his character. Anyway, we've got here an actor. You got to remember that since Henry Irving, really, people at the upper society have been obsessed with actors. Remember, in the 18th century, actors were like very low down in society. They were the mistresses, they were the whores, not very respectable, even in the mid-Victorian piece. But Dirty Bertie and the Edwardians really popularised the theatre as the place to go for society. And actually, think about Bernard Shaw. So many great playwrights of the time. And we've got here Glenn Byam Shaw as Laertes in this brilliant, wonderful outfit here. So you can immediately tell this is Philpott in his late stage, but he keeps it a little bit more real, has that realism to it. There's not even that kind of much sloppiness in the picture himself. We've got Laertes here, leaning his hands against this kind of column. He's been positioned in space and location with these powerful walls. But it's his dress, his pose, and his face that, for me, really capture interest. This amazing costume at the same time. That, like, the art of the costume, has been dead since the 70s. I think it's such a shame. These kind of bombastic, original. There's something of the past, but also something of the time about them. And then the face of Glenn himself here, very powerful, noble. There's a mystery to it, but also something instantly of the stage at the same time. So really interesting piece here. Now, I've actually managed to find the color version of this. However, the owner has cut it down. Can you believe? I think it's such a shame. Let me just bring that back up again. Let me just, okay, I can't. But there was something really lovely about that full length picture. Now, can you see what I was saying about in terms of his colors? You can immediately see it's his late period, but a couple of things instantly jump out to you. The color palette is wonderful. It's these deep, beautiful jewel tones. Look at that kind of teal blue in the background here, mixed with purple. You know, those are the two major accents. You can see the wall is this kind of blue-white, or white-blue here. Maybe a little bit of brown here, browny reds tied into the kind of red parts of the purple at the same time. The folds on this is just amazing. Just you can see this so loose, so kind of like floppy, but really powerful. Now, what do we notice here? Some great use of textured paint here for the chain, and I absolutely just love this little feature here. Like, it's hard to see in the black and white, but it gives it this 3D effect on the chain itself. You know, AI art, eat your heart out. You can't do some of that. You know, adds a focal point, adds a bit of interest. Again, just look at the detailing on the collar right there. I just think it's really interesting, and I love the face here. Like, I think late Philpott just gets a little bit too sloppy, but especially with the portraits. But this is really it's the perfect mix, in my opinion, between the graphic and the impressionistic. You know, look at the hair, and it's almost like an Art Deco sunrise at the same time. So sculpted and strong. So again, it's all about triangles, in my opinion. The triangle of the nose, the lip shape, the chin, the hair, these like little collars, this next down there, lots of triangles going on, lots of rectangles as well. Really interesting piece, and I love this kind of really interesting, if a bit, you know, it's again that kind of sloppy background, but again, it works perfectly for this piece. Okay, we've got Ernest Proctor, and this is the Pieta of St. Hilary. Now, this is interesting because from what I've understood, this is a, I think the Proctors were living in Cornwall at the time. I remember talking about it because Dodd did that painting of the Fisherman's Daughter. Anyway, Proctor went and basically kitted out an entire small church in the middle of Cornwall in this kind of style. It's a pseudo relief piece as well. And obviously it's kind of like a Pieta piece. We've got Mary with Jesus, but also other people as well. I presume St. Hilary is in here somewhere. Jesus himself is this kind of disgusting green color, but it almost turns him into stone. I think the body detail here is just so sublime. Something of the Mantegna about it. You know, Mantegna does this kind of iconic graphic style. I mean, I do dislike the faces very much so, but I think the body here is just total perfection. The colors also really interesting. You've got this kind of Peroline, like deep Windsor reds either side as well, and blacks as a note. And then I think this is like part, you can see that there was something about it being either a ceramic piece or it's kind of like painted onto stone. And that's what's so wonderful about all of these pieces. It's almost medieval, and I'd recommend checking out the whole rest of the church. We don't have time today, but really cool piece from Proctor. Lovely to see him do something theological, actually. But again, big fan. Okay, Harold Knight, and this is the Miss Ethel Bartlett. Like, Knight has been mainly obsessed with, again, the Vermeer, Old Master, voyeurism. Here we've got, I would say, something straight out of Whistler's playbook, something out of Sargent's playbook, a full-length portrait of a woman. But I absolutely love this. This is one of Harold's greatest pieces for sure. I mean, firstly, we've got to talk about the kind of beautiful depth of color. I mean, when you see the kind of finishing of the walls and the skin, that's why you immediately think of something like Whistler's Mother or something like that. But it's more graphic, it's more punchy. it's about colors as well. The velvet has been done so nicely. It's so hard to do velvet because it just kind of diffracts the light. Like, it's easier to do something like shiny, like a silk taffeta. It's the sharp highs and lows, or this is having to just subtly do these kind of little pleat lines all the way down. The sitter is standing, hands together, nervously, and she's looking off to the side. And again, you can only wonder, is she at a funeral? Is this a celebration or a commiseration at the same time? I mean, the fact that there's jewels on there says to me that it's a celebration of some kind or a remembrance. And she's looking off to the room. There's also two pictures in the background, one of some kind of jazz dance and one of a kind of a theological boundary. And I wonder again if this is almost like the two parts of the woman. Again, like the symbolism is everything. Does she have this kind of 1920s flapper background and actually also this kind of deeply theological, and the kind of conflict between that? She's sitting directly in there. There's such great framing. Also, just a shout out to some of the detailing on the carpet here. So beautiful. And this little poof, which gives you that shot of red, I think is so important. It brings out the red of the hair, red of the lips. It would be so easy to miss something like that out, but I think that just really gives you a little bit of asymmetry in the piece. And there's weighting to the right-hand side. Yes, she's placed straight down the center in terms of positioning, but her body's twisted and she's looking to the right. So we have the weight going on this side. So love it. This is definitely one of Harold's best pieces. Okay, we're on to another piece here from William Russell Flint. This is another Judgment of Paris, the great theme of the 1920s, or the interwar period, I should say. You'd think we'd get bored of this motif by now, or we've done everything we could do. But Russell Flint, who is the master of women, really, let's be honest here, he captures the youthfulness and the beauty of women just so nicely. This is actually from a print, so I do wonder how the colors will have changed a little bit. But we've got our great judge here, Paris. We know that he is a shepherd, so he's got this ornamental goat across there. And here's the prize, the golden apple, which sits nonchalantly on this beautiful stone carved out piece. He's intently, where's he looking to? He's actually looking towards the feet or the knees, not directly. Who's opposite him? We have a presentation going on, and we can see one of the goddesses here sort of standing, almost floating above the this kind of beautiful silk cloth with her two attendants either side. And she's again, it's almost like an animal show or something like that, like a crofts. She's presenting herself. I mean, I think it's so imaginative. I love this the kind of concept here from Russell Flint, because he's turned it into ceremonial. And who do we see looking on? We see the other two goddesses with their attendants here. So you can see the kind of with another light blue robe and her attendants kind of sitting down, and these two kind of more militaristic ones across there. And then there's these two little cherubs tooting their horns, celebrating the moment. There's just something so like brutal about this kind of like showing off, but also I just love this woman reclining down, the kind of hate and jealousy in her eyes, just kind of scowling at her. I think it's such a great moment. I mean, Paris is very noble in this moment. What do you do when presented with the beauty of the goddess? You look down. He's sort of, I feel like he's humbled at the same time. Can we identify who the goddesses are? I think it's really tricky, because you would assume that Athena is the one with the kind of handmaidens. Deities down here, because maybe there's the kind of Cupid-like celebrations across here, and then what we're seeing is Hera. Again, Hera gets like a bad rep. It's she's always showing her rump or turned away, etc. What I do like is this kind of mirror in the background. but I guess the mirror is to kind of almost like you're at the barber's or something. You're kind of showing you the behind of the figure, and rather than the reflection, we see this kind of mysterious face in. Okay, actually, I'm changing my mind. It's not a mirror. It looks like it's a mirror, but it's actually a shield. So I'm now thinking, okay, I'm changing my plan. I'm allowed to do this, guys, because it's my stream. I'm changing my mind. I think this is Athena, and these are her attendants, and that's carrying a shield. So it gives that kind of impression of being a mirror. But I wonder if it's showing off her kind of militaristic face, something like that. There's interesting that there's the face of the woman and then the face in the shield, and then her bearer is holding the spear and helmet there. And oh, there we go. Look, you can see that on the floor is the scaled coat she wears. So again, so that's like a classic motif. What is why is she looking up? Well, maybe there's clouds forming in the background. Maybe there is trouble ahead from this judgment and the fact that Athena is not going to be judged. Of course, Athena is part of the team of God down off the back of it. One other shout out is just this lovely as a chrysanthemum. Fairness to the to the grass and to the rocks across here, combined with all of these folds. So it's and the or something glowing in the sky. I think it's really brilliant piece from Russell Flint. Really underrated. I just love him when he does classical. He just absolutely rocks it. And also just a shout out to the woman poses, which are just so delicate and so beautiful and tasteful at the same time. I think really top quality piece of work. Okay, we've actually got the double here with Russell Flint doing this very interesting, it's almost like grease painting of truth with discretion and patience. So it's an allegorical work. Again, it's definitely in his wheelhouse. It's about the female figure and the different aspects of womanhood. We've got a woman in the center here. I mean, these legs are just so wild. It's just totally brilliant representation here. We've got this kind of more dowdy knitter across here, and we've got this this figure where she's like holding a flower, and there's kind of like a bit of a flower motif at the top. Who is who? I imagine that Patience is on the right hand side because she's knitting, and you need patience to knit. Who is Truth? I think it's difficult to tell. I couldn't tell you who the two is out of those two. Really interesting staging with this kind of dark background, the kind of wrought iron as well. Very, very fascinating to me. Very cool, very cool. Not as good as the classical piece though. Okay. If you go to the Tate Britain and you go to the Interwar room, you will be sadly disappointed with the quality of works there. I was totally aghast at the quality of work, the total bias to the extreme modernists and the surrealists, who make up about 80%. This in the flesh. The portrait itself is absolutely huge, oversized, massive. A couple of interesting things. I mean, the portrait of the woman, we don't know who she is. She's looking off to the side, but we can tell that she is a musician from her beautiful cello. The cello is almost kind of looks like a toy. It has lost all of its kind of tonal qualities of wood, kind of plastic-like, made out of bakelite. And the same thing with this totally beautiful urn and tree as well. It's simultaneously so real and so unreal at the same time. Something really fascinating about it. In terms of the sitter, she's standing up. Love this. The details on the dress there, just exquisite. She's got some really interesting handwork going on, almost kind of clicking her fingers, or there's a pensiveness or awkwardness to that hand. And she's again looking off into the distance, bit of a scowl on her face. But look at the detailing on the hair there. I think just uses light to just make that hair set aflame, set on fire. Lovely bit of work there. Here's what's interesting. He has messed around with the perspective on the floor. Now, if you look like a normal human, perspective will be much flatter. This is almost kind of like, if you imagine from under this point here, it looks like you're looking down on the floor across here. While as we move up, it's more even. So we've got this kind of fisheye element to it, where we're almost looking down at the tiles from this point. Now, part of this is to fit the whole figure in this dramatic way. Part of it is to add this almost kind of like surreal element to the work. I think he's just so interested in Renaissance works, which are playing with perspective to tell a story or to allow you to kind of show different things off. So really nice piece from Meredith. It's worth going down to Tate Britain just to see this bad boy. Okay, we've got a couple of Brockhursts coming up now. This is a little bit different to his usual style. He's got one of his famous sitters sitting down. It's called Zeitgeist. She's wearing this kind of chinoisier dress. I mean, it's still a very dark painting. Really interesting pose. Hands either side, head looking up, looking to the side slightly. I mean, it's again Brockhurst. I think you can. I mean, with all portrait painters, you can accuse them of being a little bit samey, but what are you going to do? I still think I think in particular the face is really beautiful here, really noble. He captures her so wonderfully, and again, he's a real colorist here, but he's working in the colors of darkness and shade and shadow here. It's about 4 different kinds of tones of black or near black, which I really love. The next piece is kind of like more like your standard Brockhurst, your woman floating in space. Again, I think it's perfectly interesting, perfectly fine, but I think at this point it's getting a little bit tired. Okay, on to something very different. We've got a Stanley Spencer Workman in the House, and this is a really interesting piece. Again, I think you either like Spencer or you don't. For me, he represents. There's something very gothic about his work. Again, it's about colors. It's an exploration of shapes as well, and about twisting of reality. So kind of interesting piece here. We've got 2 workmen, and what are they working on? You can see the stove here, which is being twisted in terms of the perspective to give this kind of strangeness. And he's kind of having a look. Maybe there's a problem with getting the stove to work. We've got a chip up his sure his saw is true, but that's creating some interesting lines and parallelism between the stove itself and the little fender down at the bottom. There's a little girl and either her mum or a young daughter, and they are messing around with some shoes here. The shoes themselves are kind of quite fascinating. They've got this kind of strange, surreal object shape to them, but they're also mirroring things like the curve of the calf from the workman at the top. Again, this is an exploration of colors. Look at all the vibrant, the reds, the greens, the browns. I particularly like this workman across here on the side here. The treatment of the apron, very interesting piece. Although, like I said, Spencer is really the only representative of this kind of extreme form of modernism. Again, this is all coming straight out of Fry, ultimately. Here's another great piece, and this is Spencer's Scarecrow in Cookham. Now, he used to live in Cookham, spent a lot of time. A lot of his pieces have this kind of rural element to it, but also a lot of them are theological. And what do we see with this Scarecrow? Well, it's a man made up out of straw and hay, but there's something of Christ about him. He's been splayed out like Christ on a cross. Speaking of crosses, we can see these allusions to crosses across here or in the background. So there's this, we are subliminally thinking about Jesus the entire time. What's interesting about him is he's been twisted, this kind of hunchback element to it here. It's partly grotesque, partly shocking. And the figure himself has turned away from us. And again, I think part of the effectiveness, we're not to, we're never to sort of break the illusion that it is actually Jesus Christ. It is always a scarecrow, but because it's looking out, our brains say, oh, maybe there is something there. Really, really nice. And again, this is I think Spencer at his best, which is very clever symbolism with modernist sensual undertones to it. Right, we've got this kind of genre piece here from H. Williamson. I don't know why I put this in here. This like Summer Morning. It's a little bit silly, really, but I think it's kind of showed off some more of that interwar deco styling. Here we see a couple. The woman's just been out to sea, and she's being wrapped around by her husband. But rather shockingly, in the background, we've got this woman changing into her swimming costume. There's something like classical about the contrapposto with the legs, the head turned across. So I think there is kind of allusions to the classical at the same time, but kind of interesting piece, a little slice of realism in that kind of more modern style. Okay, Harry Morley. I feel like Morley has been very, very quiet, partly because he went through like a gypsy phase, which I disliked very much, the same as Laura Knight here. I mean, this is Holiday, so this is again another genre piece, really, but I think he's really perfected his craft in terms of his tempera painting style here. And you can see just some of these figures are just so beautifully rendered. You capture this kind of the chaos and the fun of this kind of holiday moment. You can see a town in the distance and a bridge leading into this kind of riverside location. I mean, you're immediately thinking of something like Seurat, aren't you, from this, certainly with the kind of the lightness of the tones from Tempera, but it has this definite graphic quality and appeal to it as well. This is about scenes and little bits of interest and little moments all brought together. So you can see the kind of the lovers here looking out as the river passes below, or this family across here dancing and a man playing on the accordion. A little girl watches on and wants to be part of it, and her mother encourages her. As we look on the right hand side, we see some kind of nursemaid looking after two children. They're having a dance at the song. Then we've got the main figures. Maybe like this is all about glances. Who's looking at who? The man looks at the woman who's looking at the man. The woman looks at the other woman. The mother here. You have this kind of moment. I think he just renders the fabrics so beautifully, and there's not a bad face in this painting. I'm not too much of a fan of that kind of genre style, but I think Morley has really caught something here, and I would have just loved for him to have done more of his classical mode in this style. Okay, we've got an A. Kingsley Lawrence. Lawrence, a bit sloppy, a bit misjudged of the work. Do you sort of love this though? This is the main Miss Greer Garson. I think she's a film star, and we've got this very dramatic portrait of her. She's sitting on a sofa, leaning across, and she's giving us a full profile face. Her left hand is holding maybe some flowers, something in her hand, and then the right one is almost kind of holding onto her coat or dress or skirt, holding it closely. And behind her are some kind of beautiful flowers. Her dress is being knocked off the shoulders, so there's that sensuousness at the same time. This is about darkness and light, but not of the values, but of the people inside it. It's about the woman herself, a brooding temptress, a film noir siren. That's how you describe it. Really lovely piece here from Lawrence here. Absolutely adore this. Okay, Laura Knight. Now, Knight has had a lot of interest and success by this point, and you can see, look at this now. Dame Lara Knight, DBE, Dame of the British Empire, ARA. So she's part of, like, in some ways, Lara sort of, she is problematic for me in several ways. Firstly, because she gets kind of like marked as, look at this amazing woman artist, and then sort of promoted above her station. I think she is great. She's definitely does some brilliant paintings. Did she deserve to be a dame for it? Definitely not. So again, this is kind of like that subversive politicizing of the art world of the worst kind. And also her work suffers. I think we've basically seen some of her best work, and like World War II hits her hard because she goes into just propaganda, Soviet realist slot mode of the worst kind. But before that, we get this little piece here, which is a riff on one of her favorite themes, which is the circus. But actually, it's kind of like harking back to the circus, but it's really a society portrait. And what do we see? We see a woman at a gala smoking a fag, doing a cheers while wearing like a peridot outfit, the French clown and ridiculous cuff here. There is a deep sadness to this woman, I think, just like you can just see in her face, and the pose is kind of like hunched, her arm folded in, her eyes like half cast. She's gazing off into the distance. Maybe it's for a lost love, or maybe it's a year of her life wasted. So much mystery and intrigue, and I sort of absolutely love the fag in hand, because again, it's very kind of like, I wouldn't say subversive, but more kind of like, it's there's something raw and appealing about this painting for me, because it's just captured someone in a moment of reflection. During those moments of cheers, some people sort of lean into that moment and enjoy celebration and the kind of the greatness that comes with that. But others stare off into the distance and consider their own lives, and that's what we're seeing at this gala here. Beautiful painting, really nicely rendered. Love it. Okay, we've got another piece from Rex Whistler. I don't know if Whistler's been recorded that much actually in the Royal Academy. I mean, I would put his work as highly interesting, although I feel like his work as a fresco painter and a muralist marks him out here. We've got this kind of Gainsborough-esque portrait of Elizabeth and Valerian Wellesley at their country home. There's something about Algernon, sort of like, it's almost like an Algernon background across here. But what I do love is the setting. He's put them in this kind of rocky background, and the darkness is all surrounding them. There's kind of storm clouds ahead. I feel like Rex was a real, like, he was always hanging out with like the upper class set. A lot of his frescoes are in these kind of beautiful country houses. I feel like he knows that the traditional aristocracy are on the way out. They're a waning power, that the darkness is closing in on them. And he's captured the moment of this. Even the dog is in this kind of darkness and sadness. Rex died during the war in a like piloting a tank. It's like a wild story. So this is coming up to the kind of last years of his life, and I just feel like he had a lot of foresight into the future. I think if you were to kind of look at this picture as on face value, you would think it's like a little bit kitsch, with its kind of like almost kind of like big eyes, stuff like that, like kind of Big Eyes-esque over sentimental figures in the front. But what you've got to treat this is as like a landscape plus people plus the symbolism as well. Two dogs going out in the background, mysterious. I really love it from Rex. I'm a big Rex Whistler fan, so love to see him at the Royal Academy. This is kind of interesting just because I wanted a little bit of that kind of juxtaposition from these kind of like screen sirens and beautiful women, and this is called The Catch, and it's um, I would say like a classic female archetype of your countryside girl slash um, woman of the estate, and because of the needs of the countryside, one has to be a little bit rough around the edges. You think of something like whatever Blandings with the I can't remember the name of the woman that wearing these kind of ridiculous big gabardine jackets, etc. Who is the catch? Is it the fish or is it the woman? And that's the interesting thing. So there's this kind of like rugged countryside archetype, but also look at this beautiful scarf with like lemons on it. It's such a juxtaposition, and the face, very very beautiful. Again, like not iconic or a visionary, maybe a little bit. It's a little bit dowdy, almost you would say, but there is kind of youth and vitality and beautifulness to her at the same time. So it's kind of like an elevation and a celebration of that kind of countryside archetype. And I just love the scarf, which kind of just adds that kind of distinctive femininity. And she's she's like staring into our souls as well. It's like a deep, penetrating painting. The two fish as well, I think, is interesting. Is that symbolic of two lovers or two loves together? So again, this is like it's a portrait, but I think there's a bit of fun in there from Kenneth. Speaking of, this is very. I get the lunar age really begins with that kind of late Victorian period, 1880. Like man obsessed with woman, and he craves her, desires her. That's why I feel like Judgment of Paris is just such a fitting theme for this time period. And here she is. This is the lady from Millbank. We're not given her name. She just has that title. And she is at the center of the world, and around her are all of these men. She is capturing attention. She is capturing conversation. She's a real head turner, as they used to say. There's something, again, Renaissance-y about the painting. Again, you could just divide it down the center, but with Christ or the saint replaced with woman. We see these two little figures having a chat between themselves, wondering who she is. This soldier has almost broken his neck off looking behind him. All of the horsemen are desperate to speak to the woman, find out what's going on. Only the pigeons are apathetic to who she is. And I think she herself feels a little bit fatigued and tired of this attention, no doubt. But that is the price of beauty. Really interesting painting. Would have loved to see this in color, actually, just to see some of the handling on it. But I like the intellectual idea behind it. This is called a Village Madonna by B. Fleetwood Walker. Walker's had a couple of good selections with some of his paintings. Some really interesting like nudes. This is him in the kind of non-nude mode, quasi-theological. Does it work? Again, I feel like he suffers from a bit too much sameness with his paintings, and I'd love for him to kind of step out a little bit more. But I would say that he, renders fabric so beautifully. I love this kind of ruddy child. Reminds me of my own son. Very interesting. Okay, we're moving on to some of the sculpture pieces, and I have to be honest, I was absolutely blown away by this piece. It's really fascinating for me. At first, I thought it was William Macmillan piece, because it said it was a garden group. I thought it was associated with the Trafalgar Fountains, but actually it's an individual piece, Alfred F. Hardyman, and it's a fat pootie riding on a seahorse. But I just love the sculptural details on it. It's just so brilliant. Like the seahorse has really been transformed. This is very exciting for me. I find it really fascinating. It's about the kind of extrapolation of forms and figures and shapes, and the kind of regularizing them, all of these kind of different segments put together, these fascinating / horrible like fish heads across here at the bottom, which are part of the ornament, almost kind of bursting out from the weeds. And the waves that the seahorse is riding on have been turned into these kind of almost fan-like constructs. I would have loved to. I can't find this sculpture anywhere. So if you have seen a garden with it in, please tell me, and I'll be keen to know. But really love this. It's a very, very interesting piece for me in terms of the sublimation of shapes and forms. It goes beyond deco, in my opinion. It's like goes beyond that kind of. It goes beyond the archaic and the Assyrian into something new. Something more traditionally, kind of your standard deco. Here's another FV Blundstone. Companions of the Glen. A little bit sentimental here, but I do like the handling of the deer here on the right-hand side. This kind of is quite sculptural, quite jaggedy, and again, I think that's very interesting in terms of how he's done things. And the woman again has got this beautiful leg, dainty hands, these little friends meeting together. I think it's a real fun piece. Maybe she's a nymph with a little horn in her hair. So again, I think it would have been cooler, I think, if this was a little bit more stylized, especially on the deer. I think that'd have had a bit more contrast, but still interesting piece. Okay, and this is a great piece here. James Patterson, founder of the Bank of England. I mentioned the Bank of England being worked on this time. Wheeler is the principal sculptor involved in the project. There are a few others. Macmillan gets a show for some of it, but this is actually a bust for the internal here, and it's a bust in bronze. I mean, I just love this Patterson bust. Busts are really hard, I think, to just, again, maintain character and interest while also stylize. But he's done it mainly through the hair and then the rendering of the face. Now, I've managed to find where it sits, and you can see that the head here looks down, and he sculpted it for the location on the inside of the Bank of England. Just brilliant. This is what I'm talking about. Sculpture is contextual. It needs to sit within a specific location, and the face is just so majestic. It's really captured the expression. The hair's so beautiful, and love the robes here. Quite a thin bust, but then the head dipped down then gives it a bit of additional depth to it at the same time. That combined with this amazing wall decoration, he's sitting on some kind of swan thing, totally fascinating to me and totally brilliant piece of work. Okay, we've got some more for around Bank. This is for the Scottish Widows Fund new building. Main Portland. It's a Macmillan. We've seen some real strong sculpture from him. This is what's it? This is kind of like Woman, Madonna and Child for this piece. It's actually a twin. There's two parts of it, and then we've got Woman with Cornucopia. I mean, I'm less keen on the Mother and Child. I think Mother's a bit dowdy, and children are always quite hard to do. But I think this Woman with Cornucopia is very majestic. Love this pineapple falling out, just really entertaining and interesting. And she herself has got this great expression, her hand out, showing the strength and power of wealth. One thing I would say is that it doesn't look as good high up. I think if you can see, I think he's changed the face to be a bit more reverential. She's a little bit more playful here, and then the mother actually gets improved and then looks down at us at the same time. So we do get that context, but just I think Wheeler takes it to the next level with really understanding the context of the work. Okay, Richard Garb, this is the Palm Dance. This is one of his bronzes, but I think he does do this in ceramic as well. Just a really fun, interesting piece, very mythic and mystical to it. I mean, Garb's almost kind of like a symbolist, if I'm honest with you. He doesn't quite fit with everyone else, but nice little piece across here. And we've got Pegram here, out of the blue, with this nice little sculptural head with relief detail. Again, I'm very curious to find out where it is, because again, I think this is a really interesting. Pegram just sort of cracking on with lots of stuff. You got to shout out to him, just that he's churning out various bits, but that definitely caught my attention, and very curious about the wrestling scene. Now, this also caught my interest. This is a Madonna and Child from David Evans, and I thought this was really fascinating. I talk about this kind of medievalizing this turning of line and form into kind of symmetry and shapes and parallelism here. This is a great example. Look at all of the folds of fabric have been turned into these beautiful, strong vertical lines, the legs straight up, the child held up, the mother looking down. Very fascinating piece. I would have, again, loved to try and find out where this is, because I think it looked really, really cool. Yeah, just a really interesting piece, a good take on a very well-trodden subject, and I like that the child being held up as well. And I don't know, he just looks like a better child than some of the others we've seen. Right, let's finish off with this one, which is another Wheeler again, and this is his Adam. I mean, I got to be honest with you, this is him definitely trying to get in on the Alfred Turner mode, which is kind of like this archaic, classical, subtle work. It just doesn't hit for me in the same kind of way. It has a bit of a dorky feel, the shoulders, the head, it doesn't have any of the pathos that a Turner work has in the same kind of way. So Wheeler does a lot better work than this. Still kind of interesting though, especially like the hair. I think that's one of the best aspects for it, but not his best. Right, well, we've come to an end of all of the pieces for today. Let's have a look. What's some of my favourites that we've got? I really like the Philpott. That was great. The Harold Knight, the Russell Flint, Meredith Frampton. Quite a few still really good pieces, if I'm honest with you. Some good sculpture. Not as strong as some of the previous years, but we're going to be heading into 1936. Again, I think we've got a good run of stuff. So please subscribe, leave a comment with your favourite piece, and tune in to the next time, and I will catch you all later. Thank you, and goodbye.